and now we're seeing like comedy is constantly evolving and changing. And like, what's your thoughts on like from like you in the beginning is it's all about getting to the clubs and
Right.
working the scene. Now you're seeing comedians kind of breaking through podcasts, or they're breaking through TikTok and this sorts of thing. What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I thought that might come up. I didn't focus enough on that in the book because when I wrote that book, it hadn't taken off like it has now. I think the pandemic really changed a lot of the dynamic of comedy, and I think that so I think I have a lot of thoughts. I think it's great that there's a lot of different avenues, different ways for people to be discovered and noticed. What I don't like are there's a lot of acts out there that aren't really comedians or they don't really have much of an act that are putting out these 10-second, 20-second, 30-second videos, uh, hitting the algorithms by doing whatever it is it takes, right, putting the right song in the background or doing whatever it takes to get noticed, and then they're being booked as headliners in these clubs and they can't deliver. And I think that I think it's great. It's a great tool for the really talented, and I think it's a terrible tool for the less talented. And it's tough because you got people like me and others that have been into comedy for years, 20, 30 years, who may not be as good at social media and they're not going to get discovered where somebody that, you know, I don't know, shoved a kazoo up his ass and, all of a sudden they're headlining, the next comedy club, and it's very frustrating. But and I think the problem comes in too is that when people come to those shows, and especially I've noticed a lot of this. I noticed that there's a lot of comics that will see like the Matt Rifes and or a lot of audiences will see a Matt Rife video and they go to comedy club and thinking that's what comedy is now, is just people yelling stuff out and
Right.
then
Yeah.
that comic responding to them. So you got a lot of the heckle videos and stuff like that that really kind of screws up the art of comedy in and of itself. Whereas, people come in and they go, "Oh, he's going to pick on me. Oh, he's going to pick on them. Or I can't wait for them to say something about this or that." And there are some comics that are great at it. Matt Rife is really good at crowd work. In fact, I think his crowd work special comes out today, if I'm not mistaken, on Netflix. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it, so I don't know if it's any good or not. But there are certain like Big J Okerson. Most of his act is talking to the audience, but what he's doing is he's got bits that he's already written that he incorporates in through audience interaction. And that's what a lot of these people don't understand. These are written comedy bits. He's not coming up with all that. Some of it is. Some of it is absolute improv because he's a master at it. He's great. But that's not the only thing that comedy is. A lot of comedy is pre-written material, uh, jokes that have been told thousands of times, hundreds of times to different audiences. But I think it's changing the dynamic of comedy, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. I think it also affects the turnouts of clubs sometimes. I think there's sometimes an oversaturation of comedy where you can turn on the internet and get hundreds of thousands of hours of comedy at your fingertips. People don't want to pay $25 plus a 2 drink minimum to sit in a dark room and listen to a person talk for an hour, because we've also got attention deficit disorders now for everybody. So
Right. Yeah.
sitting still is tough. So, it's tough. It just is.
It's weird when like whenever you see a things evolve like this. Like, so, like, if you go back, you got, vaudeville to radio, radio to television, television into, movies or whatever, and then, comedy specials, and then all of a sudden Netflix's, and now here we are, YouTube. A lot of guys self-producing and putting out shows on YouTube and stuff like that. And to your point about the saturation, it does remind me with this influx of like the podcasts and the TikTokers and all. It reminds me of the 80s boom, where there's so many to choose from that like like you said, you start to see less and less people turning out to see it because they're seeing it
Right.
all the time. So just like waiting for the next kind of resurgence. I'm waiting for it to weed itself out because there's
Yeah.
a lot of bad out there. I think there's more bad than good in the TikTok universe.